when Daft Punk built a hit around the hitmaker? Well, we do. The person we're referring to is The Man, the 6-time Grammy Award-winning man that the French music duo Daft Punk built a song around. But before we go too far, we've got to back up all the way to the 1970s when The Man formed a band with bassist Bernard Edwards called Chic. He was the band's lead guitarist who co-wrote and produced several hits, most notably the song Good Times from their 1979 album Risque. If that bass line sounded familiar, that's because you heard its incarnation the following year on Queen's hit Another One Bites the Dust, released in 1980. Another one bites the dust. Needless to say, the music of Chic inspired many artists that grew up through the 70s, so much so that The Man was asked to produce some pretty big albums in the 1980s, like David Bowie's Let's Dance, Put on your red shoes and dance and Madonna's Like a Virgin. So it was no surprise that Daft Punk called upon The Man to co-write 3 songs for their 4th and final studio album, Random Access Memories. And it's one of those 3 songs that became the album's biggest hit. We suspect it was because it was carefully crafted around The Man's guitar playing. Now here's how it all went down. At first it was recorded by Daft Punk as a rough demo, so it wasn't a fully formed song when they invited The Man to the famous Electric Lady Studios in Greenwich Village, New York, where they had been recording. Upon hearing the song, he requested them to mute all of the demo tracks except for the drum beat, so everything that was recorded previously would not be heard. And that's when it was time for the hitmaker to work his magic. He started messing around and eventually came up with the main guitar riff that laid the foundation for everything else to be built around. Over the next several months in 2012, Daft Punk then began to lay down the other tracks and eventually recruited Pharrell Williams to record the lead vocals. When it came time to mix the song, Daft Punk considered The Man's performance to be pretty much perfect, including the sound of his guitar, which was kept mostly intact and untouched in terms of signal processing on the finished album. We're confident you know The Man. His name is Nile Rodgers, and his fingers are all over this hit single that was released on April 19th of 2013. It rocketed up the charts and reached the number 2 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. And that's why we call him the Hitmaker. So now take a listen. Here is Nile Rodgers and his funky disco guitar work on Daft Punk's Get Lucky. Now that's a chic sonic gem.